was of the same sort of line of sort of questions and things. The other thing is the policies and protocols are actually on the seat, and you just actually have a look at them before you go speak, and it'll tell you how we run this committee. Anyone that does that is going to speak can either speak at the microphone or come to the corner of the table. I have to remind you that this is a meeting held in public, it's not a public meeting. So, in actual fact, you've got to be very quiet because this is for the members, it's not for the members of the public. So, with that being said, could we start with the agenda item 1, that's membership of the committee. I think I'll bring to Val.
I'm Councillor Rouse. Today.
Thank you. Everyone all right? Minutes of previous meeting then, we did and the full record. Any matters arising from them minutes? No. So moving to the full record, I did know, thank you. Consistent lobbying, I don't think we need to go around the table, do we? Everybody's been on 16, we had a letter.
Yes.
I don't think we've lobbied on anything else. Ambition of the public then?
All right, public.
Thank you. Deputations and petitions, anyone? Public question time? No questions. We'll start off with appeals and other updates. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Matthias Franklin, Head of Development Management, Kirklees. There are 9 appeals to report, 6 dismissed, 3 allowed. I think of the allowed ones, members may mostly be interested in 2 of those. One relating to one in Heckmondwike at the Northgate Retail Park, which was for the erection of an A1/A3 coffee shop, the Costa. Members will recall that was refused, was allowed on appeal. In essence, the inspector found that the designed materials, siting and size of the building would actually make a positive contribution to that part of the site and character of the area. And although they did suggest there would be some limited impact on the residential community, this was by no means sufficient to warrant refusal. The next one that members maybe remember is another committee decision at Church Bank Way, Thornhill, Lees. That was for a two-storey extension with a single-storey rear extension and a front extension as well. That had an existing planning permission very similar to the one that went to appeal, and the inspector put great weight on the fact that there was a very credible, viable fallback, and the difference between the fallback and what went to appeal wasn't so significant in her and his assessment to warrant harm to the residential properties either side, and the appeal was allowed. Thanks, Chair. And then just to touch on the update, members have had the update, but for the record, the Council has received the inspector's report to the local plan. So the publication draft local plan and those main modifications that the Council submitted at the back end of 2018 have been found legally sound, and therefore the plan can go forward to a full Council meeting scheduled for the 27th of this month for an adoption, where if the Council vote to adopt it, it will become the development plan for Kirklees, and the UDP at that time will fall away, and that will happen on the 27th. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Can we all, any comments on that? Actually debate that as Council. I'm pretty sure some people may want to make a comment about the appeals and about the appeals, in particular about Costa. Does anybody want to make any comments at all?
Obviously, I'm very, very, very disappointed in that outcome. The people who objected, will they now be informed that the appeal has been allowed?
Yes.
It will be, because otherwise
no one will have been given a chance to actually speak on it.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, far be it from me to criticise the planning inspectorate, but I do seem to remember in the Thornhill case that we were quite emphatic that we didn't like it. despite the existence of a previous application. I mean, I don't remember it being that similar, but you know. This is one of these cases where I think we again were quite emphatic that there were things about it that we didn't like. But in the end, because, if I put it this way, the planning system is weighted to a certain extent in favour of developers because they can appeal and other people can't. If some developer appeals, then there is always a chance that the inspectorate will come down on the other side. I just hope that when the site is developed, that it doesn't cause the issues that the local people were concerned about, and indeed members of the committee as well. Again, we just have to see what happens.
I'm going to roll back on my comments because I accepted the officer's recommendation. Councillor,
well, just following on from Andrew, that one in Edmund, I just want to thank all committee members for supporting Edmund White members in fighting for the coffee. I'm hoping that a good thing out of a bad thing comes, because I know that there's plans afoot to alter the whole of the car park and the entrance exit at this site. So by sticking out, I think we've achieved something. Whilst really before, I've got to say, my gas was flooded. So much what the inspector said. But thanks to everybody for sticking by and fighting it.
thank you. And just move on. All site visits this morning. It's actually the papers were visited. We move on now to applications. Applications is agenda item 12, which is the first application. It's a conservation area notification. It's to consider approval of consent for tree works at Lane House, Oxford Road. You want to introduce yourself, please?
My name is Nick Goddard. I'm the chair officer for this portion of Kirklees, Eastern Front. This notification is, as the chair was saying, for Blenheim House, 2 trees in the rear garden. The notification is to come forward committee today because the applicant is the relative of Councillor Campbell outside of that agreement. So the proposal is for this is Blenheim House here. Proposals for 2 trees in the rear garden. Proposals first of all to reduce the height of one by 50% approximately, how it's worded, and to remove a second. Because it's a conservation area only, the assessment we have to make is whether the trees are warranted a tree conservation order. If they don't, then we can't have any objection to the work. So the first tree is the silver birch, which has been reduced So because of that lean and decay in the base, it's got very limited life expectancy. The removal of that tree is not something which should exist.
Thank you. No speakers on this, members. I'm quite happy to move this recommendation. Did you? Sorry, Mark. Sorry.
No question.
No question. So, are you seconding that? Yeah. Woollen has seconded to accept that this is a recommendation. Anybody against? Thank you. We'll move on to item 13 then. This is planning application for demolition of existing dwelling workshop and erection of 4 dwellings at 16 Cumberworth Lane. Rebecca, can I ask you to pull the microphone closer?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Gray and I'm the case officer for this application. The application is brought to subcommittee due to number of representations received and at the request of Councillor Watson. The application relates to a parcel of land on the southern side of Cumberworth Lane in Upper Cumberworth. The northern boundary of the application site fronts Cumberworth Lane and land levels fall gently away from the road. The site contains a dormer bungalow and a detached workshop building, and the applicant currently runs his poultry business from this unit. So, just got a few photographs just to run through, just to jog our memories from the site visit this morning. So, this is the application site you can see here. We've got the existing dormer bungalow here, and this is the workshop building that the applicant runs his business from. And you can see the relationship with that out there with number 14 Cumberworth Lane. This is roughly where the bus parked this morning for the site visit. Again, just a close up looking at the workshop building. On this picture you can see the dormer bungalow here. And you can see number 1A Field, which has a close relationship with the dormer bungalow as we saw on site. So that's just to refresh our memories. That's a rear elevation of number 1A Field with the conservatory on the back, and that's what's looking at it in terms of the existing bungalow. This photograph was taken from in the garden area. Some members went down to the garden area and just have a look at the relationship and the vegetation that currently forms the boundary treatment. This photograph is taken from the properties to the south of the site on Durham Field and just shows the other side of that boundary treatment and the dense vegetation that currently exists. So this application is submitted in full and it's for the demolition of the existing buildings and the erection of 4 dwellings in their place. Each dwelling would be 2.5 stories in height, with 3-bedroom accommodation being provided in each. The front elevations would have additional appearance in terms of their ventilation detail and design, but the rear elevations would have a more contemporary feel, with some large areas of glazing proposed on the ground floor and the roof lights as well. So access will be taken directly from Cumberworth Lane, from where the bus was parked today for the site visit. The 2 end dwellings would have 1 parking space in their attached garages, you can see there, and they'd have a driveway for additional parking. The middle dwellings would have 2 spaces to the front there, and then there's also some soft landscaping, as you can see on the plan, just to break up there, the area of landscaping. In relation to visual imagery, the scheme has been amended significantly during the course of the application. The scheme under consideration now is considered to have a positive impact on visual imagery relative to the existing situation. A condition is recommended in relation to materials. Officers would really like to see a natural stone with the front elevations and the prominent areas of the side elevations, that's at least. The introduction of the soft landscaping to the front is also considered to just soften the visual impact too. Just a point of clarification as well, as I said on the plus to members, when you have a look at the elevations within the report, I've said that there's a very slight stagger to the front elevations way that the plans have been drawn to indicate the materials changing. The front elevation is flat front elevation with a stagger to the rear only. So that's just a point of clarification, it doesn't alter the assessment. In relation to residential amenities, a full assessment has been set out within the report, and the amendments have been focused on reducing the impact on the amenity of the neighbouring property. This is now considered to be acceptable. To the rear of the application site, whilst distances are slightly less than ideal, the submitted section plan models the relationship and shows that there would be no direct window relationship, and that the trees and vegetation on the boundary would be retained, which do to some degree mitigate those impacts. So the impact on residential needs is considered acceptable, and you can see the section on the screen here, modelling the relationship with number 2, then field, and that's also on the printout that was given to you. In terms of highway safety, it is considered acceptable, and policy compliance standards of on-site parking are achieved. There's been 17 objections received on the application. This includes the second round of publicity 2, and we have had publicity on the member plans. So all these are set out within the main report and are responded to as well. So in summary, the application is considered to represent sustainable development and is considered acceptable, subject to the conditions set out in the report. As such, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Chair, thank you. I'd like to move we approve this subject to the recommendation report would be natural stone, keeping the street scene on that area, and also with condition that the roof is stone is proper slate, not concrete tiles, but slate. So we have a slate roof, natural stone to match surroundings. I might have to move this for approval.
Thank you. Taylor?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, with it being quite a tight site as we were looking at it this morning, can we also put in conditions that Councillor Turner's always mentioned the fact that there's no more permitted development rights?
It's in there anyway.
It's in there.
It's in the six. Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to second what Councillor Turner said. Just two queries. I'm pleased to see that considering the extent of hard surfacing in this application, that it is to be made permeable. But I'd also like to ask what colour we think the permeable, the hard surfacing should be, bearing in mind we've asked for natural stone. I mean, normally we're talking about brick colour, and brick of one sort or another, but I just wonder what...
But if it's permanent, it could be grass creek, it could be anything, couldn't it?
Yeah.
We don't know the hard landscaping details at the moment, but there is a condition on that requires the submission of all the details for consideration and approval.
Yeah, I think it should be sympathetic to what rather than stick out.
Is anybody else? No. I'd like to make 2 points on that. I think one of which is always reminds me of an application in Fairfield where we have the space for our buildings and it's still a continuous signing on that space for our buildings. We discussed it on the bus this morning and looked at it in reality, and I think you're right that on this occasion that it doesn't have a direct effect. We do need to be trying to be as consistent as possible and achieve the 20 metres between properties. This is only 18, I asked about that, but in this occasion I understand it, but let's try and be as consistent as we possibly can. The other thing is that I'd prefer it if we enhance this and enhance the Councillor Turner's recommendation to make it to the gables, stone to the gable walls as well as the front elevation, because then as you're coming up that road you can actually see, and it's like a line of stone terraces. So if we can move that, if you want to alter that, so then conditions, we have to all those in favour. Are you for second that? name, planning application, change of use, alteration of the garden range, the dog daycare facility, Jack Lorry Lane, option method.
First point is the kind of procedure, just to inform members. The application will usually involve loss of sports facility, therefore the application should be assessed in regards to consultation guidance issued by sports team would suggest that in the case they were not statutory consultation.
Can everybody hear?
No. Sorry.
Can you just bring it a little bit forward? Sorry.
However, the advice is to still to consult with them for the loss of any major sporting facility. However, in this case, it's not considered a major sporting facility. Paragraph 97 of the NPPF suggests that the facility is subject to requirements and no further assessment is required. In this case, it's considered subject to requirements. Further away, it's intentionally ordered the facility is closed down anyway. So, I think just address that point. To go on to the application is for the change of use of the golf driving range to a dog daycare centre. In terms of the principle, relevant policies of both the local plan and NPPF for the reuse of buildings in the green belt. It's important to note there is no requirement of policies for the buildings to be vacant or for the last use to cease. The existing plans of the building and the proposed plans. The proposal for the change of use of the building, alterations for the dog daycare centre. The structural report has been submitted to show that the building is capable of being converted to village use. The centre will have 10 kennels in the grooming room and will be for up to 30 dogs. The applicant has submitted a statement which provides details on how the business will be run. It suggests that the centre will provide a safe environment with constant supervision where owners can leave their dogs during the day. In terms of the alterations, there will be windows inserted to the south elevation, which is currently facing over the driving range, and the windows to the rear elevation facing the access road. It's considered these alterations fairly minimal and in terms of visual meaning, both acceptable. Within the wider site, there will be some other alterations to provide the outdoor exercise area. Some planting is proposed adjacent to this outdoor area. However, the details are limited, and it's therefore recommended that more detailed landscaping plan is required by condition. This should also include any details of boundary fencing, which is replaced the golf fence around the range. Subject to appropriate conditions, it's considered there is no additional harm to the owners of the green belt or visual limited from the proposed alterations. In terms of the residential amenity and noise issues, environmental health has been consulted on both the original and additional information. The set of proposals can consider that the proposals can be made acceptable, subject to adequate mitigation measures being implemented. And that report should be submitted to show how this can be achieved. Potential mitigation measures would include noise insulation to the building. It should also show how the building can be adequately ventilated without this application with the council's animal welfare officer. There would be a requirement for a kennels licence, and the condition of the licence would be that only dogs from the same household could share the same kennel. So it would be the same kennels, so it would only require the same household. In terms of the open house, the applicant has proposed the centre would be open from 7:30 till 1900 Monday to Friday, and 7:30 to Monday on Saturday, with no opens on bank holidays or Sundays. So although the environmental health officer has recommended a condition that there are slightly longer hours, it is considered reasonable with a number of objections and other concerns to restrict the hours of opening to those applied for. Should be noted of relevance to the opening hours of the golf driving range. These are from 9 AM till 9 PM, 7 days a week.
So 24/7.
Confirmed by particular golf development. Within the wider site, there's not on the farm. There are a number of other uses, including a livery and a fishing pond. It is acknowledged that there has been some concerns about the service to the users of the nearby pond, and it is in part further justification for recommending that the hours of opening are restricted to those applied for. As a site would operate during these an additional condition to those in the opposite before, we suggested the garden tree and external lighting to be submitted. This was advised to the environmental health officer. In terms of highways issues, the first concern is the access, regarding access from Jack Road Lane. This site is still quite to access. The proposal is to only use the access from Highgate Lane. This has been requested as a condition by the Highways Officer, and they've also requested a traffic management scheme to show how the traffic is restricted to using it when it is access from Highgate Lane. The second issue is provision of parking. The plan shows within the existing car park, serving the golf driving range, and will provide 14 places. The Highways Officer has confirmed this is acceptable subject to condition. In terms of any other issues, there's coal mining. It's in a coal mining area. The coal authority has requested an intrusive investigation before development commences. In conclusion, the proposals will provide an alternative use to this building in accordance with relevance and local national policy, and the application is recommended for approval.
Thank you. Matthew Chambers, please.
That's me. I'm not going to say this, obviously, it's not a very good or if we can cover this. Is that working? Do I have to turn it on? Can everybody hear me? All right, need to be closer. Good afternoon, my name is Matthew Chambers. I would like to take this opportunity to object to the proposed dummy daycare centre for several reasons. Firstly, noise. I live directly adjacent to the building and spend a lot of time in the garden. The thought of 20 or 30 dogs arriving and barking horrifies me. Realistically, no noise studies or soundproofing measures will make any difference to this fact. I also own the lake, where keen fishermen come for peace and quiet. Dogs barking in the area would be unacceptable, and I will probably have to close that facility. This development is not appropriate within the tranquil greenbelt area I live in.
Okay.
Thank you. A further worry is that the doggy daycare centre would only maximise its financial potential if the dogs were allowed to stay all night. I feel that this will be the ultimate goal of the applicant. It is important to mention at this point that the golf driving range has had similar time restrictions put on it in the past by the planning committee. However, the range is now open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and most of the time with nobody looking after it. The applicant has over many years shown little respect to the planning laws and has had several run-ins in the past with the planning authorities. The roads on site are already overstretched by the large amount of development that's taking place, much of which without planning consent. A large amount of caravans, mostly stored without permission, allowed to come and go, unsupervised, 24 hours a day, and the doggy day care centre would only add to this traffic. Highways have not put up any objections. However, the golfers were spread evenly through the day. The proposed development would have two distinct busy times, morning and tea time, when the time is already busy, and struggling to cope with the single track, untarmacked access road. Many people will continue to use the access from Jackroy Lane, as this road is in good condition, and will continue to do so unless the untarmacked and frequently flooded road Highgate Lane is drained and properly tarmacked. For these reasons, I feel that the planning application should be turned down. Thank you, Chair.
I've got concerns about this, I must admit, and I'd just like a little bit of clarification through you, Chair. It's showing 10 kennels here, but in the report it's talking up to 30 dogs. Well, I mean, I wouldn't want to think, much as I'm a dog lover and I have one at home, I wouldn't want to think that there was 30 dogs shared out between 10 kennels. So I've got an issue about that. I also want some clarification of if somebody can't get back by 7 o'clock to collect their dog.
Yeah.
Is that dog then going to stay overnight? Because if that's the case, we need to look into totally different thing, because that's a boarding kennels issue. The other thing I'm concerned about is the impact on the green belt of the all-weather exercise area, or whatever else we want to call it. And the barn, although it's going to be changed around and altered and everything else, I would certainly want that to have some soundproofing on it. And I'd also probably want to see a soundproofing situation, I'm not going to say fence with it being green belt, but something else, as well as just planting various shrubs and trees. I think this is in the wrong place. Yeah. I also don't think it's fair that any more traffic is coming up through Hopton Village and through Jackroy Lane. And I know that we came in on the other way from Lila Lane this morning, but you know and I know that everybody is not going to go the whole way around there with one Lane. They're going to be coming up through this way, through Jackroy. That village can't really take much more traffic. And I just think that this development has been going on for years, piecemeal with a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of the other. And I just think that it might be classed as appropriate development in the green belt, but I don't think it's appropriate for where it is and what it is and the access and everything else. So I shall be voting against this application, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Some of what I was going to say, Councillor Taylor said. No, but however, I do have concerns about this building. There's been no mention of what type of material, what colour, what impact. But that aside, obviously, you can come back to me on that. It's about the drainage issues and about the dogs in there. I've actually worked in the kennels as a teenager, and it will require drainage there, and it does need sanitation. Because if you look at 10.20 on the report, it talks about that should staff want to relieve themselves, there'll be other facilities. But what about the dogs internally? That is going to have an impact. So the drainage rooms, we need to go back. So to that end, I'm not happy to support that application.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack. I do have a couple of concerns about this application. One is from the first speaker's reputation about the bulge hours, that kind of school drop-off effect in the morning. I don't know whether that can be conditioned out or not, how many visitors we can have on site at the same time. I have no idea how high those can manage that, or if we could even put it in licensing laws. I have no idea. So I believe that's what this is, if it was to be accepted.
application like this lives and dies on its conditions, and we have quite a few conditions in here. There is a waste storage and collection area to be provided, details of waste disposal methods. We have the hours of opening and a noise report to be submitted before commencement of construction. We have all of that suite of conditions in place before anything happens. So I'm minded to accept officer's recommendation, but I still have these couple of queries that Councillor Taylor highlighted, which was if somebody should not turn up, and the one that first highlighted, which was that kind of school drop-off.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with virtually everything that Councillor Taylor said about this. This question of somebody lodging a dog there and then not coming back at the proper time is not made clear what they do in those circumstances. Because it says quite clearly, one of the conditions says no boarding. But it seemed to me that there is a further objection to this, and that is this is a relatively remote location, and we're talking about the fact that anybody who wants to take their dog to stay there, they've got to travel a bit from wherever, and although it seems to me that it's a perfectly legitimate use in the Greenbelt, I think it's too far away from anywhere to be sensible, because you can't easily get there by public transport, or you can, but it's not that convenient. I am struggling, however, to think of reasons for refusal, and that's the difficult bit. I can't at the moment think what you would say as the reason for refusal, unless it's something like this is an inappropriate location. Not talking about Greenbelt, but it's not in a sustainable location.
Subjective.
Well, some of planning certainly is subjective, but I think you could possibly elect an argument on that basis.
Sorry, Chair. I'm worried about the noise from this. One of them said they would be prepared to go for a site. I think absolutely imperative to go for a site visit, look at mitigation. I live quite a considerable distance from a local hunt. But obviously there's more dogs in the hunt. When they all start barking, it just across the valley, you can hear it all over that village. So how are you going to quite assess the noise as well? Because, let's be honest, little dogs make little yappy noises, and big ones make a lot more noise. So how are you going to quite assess how much noise is going to generate? It's been really good. I think it's imperative that somebody goes out and has a look at this and tries to mitigate possibility. And because he's one of those, swings around that here, it's a different one. I'm struggling to find a reason to object to it, but if we're going to pass it, we've got to put as many conditions in place to make sure that the residents aren't inconvenienced.
Yeah, this is a balance.
It really is a difficult one.
There's absolutely no doubt, and Catherine live in the area, I can understand that. It's important that we do look. I think John's actually said there's a lot of things in there, the mitigation actually in the report. I think what Councillor Turner's just said is quite correct. We can ask for an environmental report before the decision notice is actually given. That's what's if that's what we do and what we want, and I think that's important to us. It is balanced, and there is a struggle, and we also, I think officers, if we can delegate this back to our business to look at the attenuation attenuation procedures and see whether we can do something about landscaping and the boundary treatment to try to mitigate any noise that's been avoided. Actually, within the I have to say, we've got to accept today that also that there's no need for that sporting facility to remain there, because part of the NPPF is trying to retain sporting facilities, and to be quite honest with you, it didn't look as though it were well used to me. I don't know what it looked like everybody else. And the fact is, if one of these closes down, the people that do use it will move on to make other ones more successful. And I think that's something that we should take into consideration when deciding this application. I'll bring you back in, and Catherine, I need somebody to move to second this.
I mean, I'm very unhappy about
Yeah,
it, so I'm obviously going to vote against it. But if members are looking to pass it or pass it back on to officers, could we limit the number of dogs? Because 30 dogs is just like something like a whole lot of Dalmatians, isn't it? 30 dogs with 10 pens is just absolute crazy. To me, if there's 10 pens, there should be no more than 10 dogs.
Well, I actually think on that. I'd love to know this. We've got an agent here.
Yeah, the agency.
I don't know whether you can answer any of these questions.
Yeah, certainly can. So if the limit for 30
Could you come
dogs,
to the table?
yeah,
If you don't mind.
the limit for 30 dogs was based on the fact that some people have 2 or 3 dogs in a family, and therefore if they want to drop off all 3 dogs, then there will be 3 in one. And if 10 families have 3 dogs, then that's the very maximum of dogs that there will be. But, like Environment Health said, dogs from separate families cannot share the same kennel, so there potentially will only be 10 dogs, but it could be 15, 20, 30 is a maximum. So dogs that know each other will go in together. A family bringing 2 dogs are not going to take us to.
I think it answered my questions was 30 dollars. I think it was different. I didn't know there was some requirement under some specific cruelty law or whatever as to these dogs, the different dogs. But if it's from the same family,
Yes.
they coexist anyway, don't they?
Yes.
Can I just ask you, if you do know the answer to the question of whether if someone's late picking them up?
Yes. Well, that would be an extreme case, a case where it was unexpected. Obviously, clients will know what time they have to come and collect the dog from to. In that case, a staff member, whoever's running the facility that day, will not be planning on sleeping there and keeping the dog there. So the arrangement would be that that dog was taken with a staff member and would be collected or picked up the next day, and that would be signed as when they actually get the dog off. But I can assure you that my client has absolutely no.
Well, we can do something about that here today. We can say, if you ever wanted to be boarding kennels, it's got to come back to you.
It isn't going to ever be a boarding kennels.
That's right. Thank you.
There will be no reason for us to come back for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So does some of them answer some of the questions? Is anybody going to move and second this?
I'll move it.
Is anybody going to second?
I'll second, but let's have a proper suite of questions for our officer to actually answer. And resolve.
Well, in particular, we're talking about attenuation, as is that?
In relation to the idea of the traffic bulge
Yeah.
at the beginning and the end of the day, and some of the other things that we talked about, especially with things that Councillor Taylor has highlighted.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Okay, so some of the things coming out, members, drainage, foul and surface water,
There
is
is
picked up.
There's something.
Yeah, and we can go back to the applicant for a decision. Drop-off concerns, not sure there is much you can do because that's the nature of business use and it is acceptable in highway safety terms on that. But unexpected delay, the applicants confirmed that the dogs would be taken by a member of staff, so there won't be any boarding, and there's a planning condition to that effect to say it isn't a boarding facility. Noise issues. Are you saying you want the noise report done before the planning commission is granted?
Yes.
You're delegating that
Yes.
back to
Yes.
us.
Yes.
So we're under no illusions there. That's fine. We will get
Before
that
the
done.
decision notice is sent.
That's fine. Landscape issues to pick up the play area, and any softening or any softening of that, we will look again. And those are salient issues. Have I got everything there?
I mean, yes.
We picked up before the decision is made, so it's delegated to officers
It's delegated to
to improve.
Yeah. Okay. We've got a mover and a second to accept that. With these questions to be answered. All those in favour? Anybody against? No. All those in favour? Sorry. Against? Application is approved then. Thank you. Subject to their recommendations. Thank you. We'll move on to the agenda item. These are the things we'll do to the post office, which will do the transaction. Erection of the post office, general store. Or
The application for Hightown Post Office is brought to committee given the level of representation, 17 objections and 30 supporting comments received, and members visited the site this morning. The site is allocated within the Unit 2 Development Plan, and approval was granted in April last year for a replacement retail building in what was the Garden 483 Halifax Road, subject to a 106 agreement to ensure the change of use of the original store to additional living accommodation. This was considered necessary to ensure that there were 2 retail units out of the accommodation. Complaints were received in October last year by the enforcement team, and a second application for signage illustrated that the building was not being constructed as approved. A joint site visit by myself and the enforcement officer was carried out in early November, and the applicant was made aware that they had deviated from the approved plans. On the screen now are the approved plans. An application for a modified scheme is now before members. The building which has been erected on site is substantially larger than the approved building. The approved height at each was 3 metres and then built has been built at 3.2. The overall height should have been 5 metres with a pitched roof form, and as you can see it's a pitched roof form with a height of 7.35. And the approved width of the building was 19 metres, and as built it's now 20.05 metres, and it's close to the junction of Springfield Drive. During the course of the application, further site visits have been carried out and work has been continuing on site. During a visit on the 7th of January this year, it was noted that engineering works had also been carried out to the rear, and when clarification was sought, it seemed that this was to form a new driveway, a parking and raised garden area. Given these required planning permission in their own right, they have been included in the application and have been re-advertised as such. So the current application has been considered in terms of the impact on town and local centres. The replacement store was considered to be acceptable previously, subject to a 106 agreement, and the principal therefore, should a 106 agreement be agreed, the principal is still acceptable. However, in terms of visual amenity, the change in terms of materials for the use of rented to the side and rear would be acceptable given the mixed palette in the area, but the increase in bulk and massing together with the new roof design and the irregular height of the building form an incongruous feature within Halifax Road. In terms of residential amenity, as assessed within the report, the building is sufficiently distant from most of the neighbouring properties, so the increase in height would not actually further harm their amenities. Although there is a bedroom window at the property which would be effective for it during Halifax Road, and it's noted that this road is occupied by the applicant. However, this is still a consideration. With regards to highway safety, the footprint of the building has increased on the ground floor and now includes the first floor detailed as a store area. The application form submitted states that 5 parking spaces will be provided, and the additional plan received in January did show 5 spaces to the rear. However, for the reasons outlined in the officer report, the layout shown is not satisfactory.
2 out of the 5 spaces do not have clearance required to manoeuvre, and the width of the driveway at 5 metres is insufficient. Furthermore, part of the adjacent footpath has been developed with the parking area, driveway, and 2-metre height in the fence, resulting in encroachment. The bin store area provided previously has now been built on, and whilst the agent has shown replacement provision, the size shown is not sufficient for the retail use. It's also appreciated that the previously approved scheme did not include details of a parking provision. However, the building is larger than the approved plans, and with the indicated staffing arrangements, parking would be required. Furthermore, there's now a 2-metre high timber fence constructed partway across the public right of way, raises concerns as outlined in the update. The width has been reduced to approximately a metre for the footpath, and this is considered to have a detrimental impact on footpath users and results in restricted visibility for vehicles and pedestrians. There have been a number of representations received in terms of both objection and support. These have been summarised in the report and responded to accordingly. So if members agree with the officer recommendation, this would be as outlined at the start of the report, to delegate back to officers as there is outstanding publicity for refusal and enforcement to demolish the building in its entirety. Members should also be aware that if the building is demolished, there is still a live commission and the applicant can revert to the previously approved scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ryan, I think we should come in now.
Through Chair, ranking the Highway Development Management. Jenny's covered the majority of the issues that I was going to raise, but reiterating the fact that the car park access encroaches onto the existing public right of way. This should be a minimum of 1.8 metres. The proposal included the fencing off of this, reduce it to approximately 1 metre, which is considered insufficient by the Council's public right of way officer. The indicative loading area to the side has not been demonstrated to accommodate any manoeuvres for a standard size delivery vehicle, for example a 10-metre long vehicle. Whilst it's acknowledged that the original approval did not provide any off-street parking, the parking area indicated to the rear is insufficient in size and therefore not considered fit for purpose. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I've got numerous speakers on this. Can I just remind you that you've got 3 minutes and keep your eye on that clock there, please. I'll tell you when you're coming to the end of the 3 minutes. And I also remind you what I said right at the beginning, that please try not to repeat what everybody else has said, because if you do, I'll ask you to sit down. Okay then, Mr. Rounding then, please. Mr. Rounding, do you want to just stand there? Sit down.
I'm just thinking the stores we allow is a good facility for the local community. You know, the people who can't go cars, can't get into town. It's provide a good shopping experience for them. You know, and that's basically what I'm saying. You know, I don't think there are any more cars going there than there's now. You know, this store still well used. It's just going to provide a more choice. You know, so people who live on their estate are, you know, it's a useful facility, I think, and that's what I'm going to say.
Thank you. Mrs. Rounding.
Yes, well, I'm sort of in the same idea as John, because every day we go to the shop there and we buy our newspaper. If that wasn't there, Alison has built this up right from the very, very start. There was nothing there. She's been a really important person to the community. And on Windbank Estate, I see children coming in the morning when I drive up for the paper. And I think it's, you know, important that she's done so much work, and that unfortunately always some people will complain. But I think you've got to look at the further outlook of what it's going to give the community. And
most of the traffic that goes up there, the people are popping in and out. I've seen it this morning, cars in and out. Nobody, it doesn't block anywhere, it's a wide road. I've done it myself. You know, so I would like to say that, like I said, what Alison has done, I take my hat off to that lass. And it should be allowed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dale Phillips, please. You can do whatever you want.
I'll do it.
As long as you don't give us a song.
That's what I'm ready now. Yeah, this is the first new shop to be built in this area in my lifetime. I've lived here in this area all my life, and I've seen it go from over 12 shops down to 3. There's only one that any disabled people could really use any time of day. There's one that disabled people cannot use at all, and therefore needed really. That's the only ones who have disabled access. And there's a lot of disabled people in there, we've got one just there. Yeah. There you go.
Gillian Milne, please.
Hi, I'm Darren. I live down the road from the post office. And
Just a minute. Is it down one?
yeah, that's right. Yeah. And
Darren, you picked it up. Can't you?
yeah. Oh, I didn't have the road.
No, you don't need to speak to them.
Right. Yeah, just saying, I run the business 2 doors away from the post office, and in there I had to get everything done for disabled people, for disabled children, which steps, there were no steps, so you straight in double doors, toilet doors for disabled, got all that done, and to see people coming into the place where it's disabled and the smile, you think you've done a good job. The post office shop is going to be exactly the same. You'll get someone with a pram. You can go in with a pram. Before you couldn't go in with a pram. So to me, a disabled person, kids, my daughter works at Kirklees, brings kids up to watch the football in wheelchairs. They can actually go to the post office when it's open, when it's being done, if it gets past and everything. And like a kid in a sweet shop. You can't take that away. That smile is unbelievable. Just that. Okay.
Thank you. Gillian, is Gillian Milne there?
I'm with the Atlantic Partners Office and all these scams, but also I would also like to point out that the increased housing in the area has been phenomenal in the last 5-10 years. The size of the community has practically doubled, and as Dale says, the number of facilities for us is reducing all the time. So I'd like to say.
Thank you. Alison Hall, please.
Mr Chairman, Committee, I am Richard's partner and co-owner of Item Stores. We are both very proud, proud and great citizens of Item and proud of what we have achieved. We started this business from scratch and through hard work found our new shop essential to support our ever-growing community. There are currently 30 plus new houses being built within a quarter of a mile of our shop and plenty more in the pipeline. I can confirm that all deliveries will be received via the front entrance, same as now. There will be no extra impact on parking because of our decision to add extra till to speed up transactions at busy times. This will not be any motor vehicle access to Springfield Drive. We have in our area a large number of elderly and disabled persons, most of them which have no alternative to venture into the nearest town for their daily essentials. Our new store will provide easy access for elderly persons. We have also consulted with a number of disabled and amputee persons, and as a result widened the aisles to accommodate the much larger chairs. The aisles are in place are going to be 1.6 wide, making it easy to manoeuvre. They presently have to knock on the door and wait until somebody can attend. We have built a shop called with 1 mile radius that is 100% compliant for both staff and customers. The reaction from all our customers has been amazing, and we can't wait for the new shop to open.
Thank you. Mike Lanes, please. Mike, you can stay there if you want to.
Hi, I'm Mike Lanes. As you can see, I'm a total wheelchair user. For the past 5 years, I've been one of these who's been knocking on the door and staff come out to me, all of us. Disabled access is very important. From my town to little town, there's not one shop I can get in. This new shop is going to give me that. It's supposed to be help the disabled, not hinder them. This shop is going to give me freedom, never mind everybody else. So I personally do support this shop.
Thank you. Andrew Lancaster.
I've lived in Hightown for 14 years and I'm a frequent user of Hightown stores and post office as it is now. And I'd like to support the application to leave the store in its current form. I understand the reasons that the shop is a different size to the original application. It's mainly to accommodate a Woollen disabled compound staircase, which is obviously bigger than a standard staircase, which requires 2 metres headroom, which is why the roof is being put to the 45-degree pitch. Just want to go through the points on the guidance notes regarding what we are allowed to speak on. There's no planning history as such, given that the new store is part and parcel of Richard Nelson's existing yard. The visual impact, as you said in the previous application, is subjective. I think the property is built sympathetic to all the buildings around it, in its design, its construction, and its materials. I don't think it has any effect on any of the amenities, any detrimental effect. Traffic and highway considerations don't seem to be any different to they are now to the existing shop, given that the new shop entrance is about 7 yards away from the existing post office entrance. There's no vehicle access to the new proposed shop via Springfield Drive. If you leave Springfield Drive onto Halifax Road and looking left, the actual visibility will probably improve, given that there was bushes and trees there previously. There's no impact on listed buildings, conservation areas, or protected trees. So I support the application and like every other resident look forward to using the new shop. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, Councillor, I won't go over the bits and pieces that previous reports have alluded to. This is Caroline Williams. I've lived in the Hightown area all my life, as the rest of my family. I understand the development issues, however, as Del alluded to, a lot of the small businesses closed over the years. And we have small business in Kirklees in the town centre that are closing as well. So with this in mind, the benefit, the new post office would benefit the community in many aspects. One, disability, obviously that's been alluded to already. And with the disabled toilet in the shop as well, that is going to be a major plus. We also, thinking of the young mothers with the Hightown Infant School, they've actually gone in and spoken to the proprietors and asked about volunteering within the shop to enhance their CV, so potentially they could either get employment within the post office if it arises or within other retail establishments. I have members of my family that are disabled in a wheelchair, and they rely on us. I have 2 other sisters, rely on us to fetch and carry. My mother is actually looking forward to the post office opening because she will gain her independence back by fetching and carrying her own stuff as well, which is a bonus. There's been a lot of stress and undue attention towards the proprietors at the moment, and we would like you to support the bill to move forward so it could benefit the community also. Chair, councillors.
Thank you. Richard Thornton, please.
I'm speaking on behalf of Richard, unfortunately. Can't be here today.
Can you just say who you are, please?
Yeah, I'm Michelle Woollen. And
Hello,
I'm like
sorry.
everybody else, I live in the High Town
Can you
area.
just give us your name again?
Yes, Michelle Woollen. So, my name is Richard Thornton and I own the plastering business adjacent to the new proposed store. We have been based here for 20 years and consider Hightown stores a huge asset to our community. I think it's remarkable what they have achieved. The building is a business from scratch to the new store in just 13 years. I was delighted when Richard approached me to do the rendering to the new shop. He was very concerned that it must match as close as possible to all the other rendered properties close by. This was not easy as all the other properties were varied and of much more mature age. However, we decided to try and match the house next door and other properties on Halifax Road. I have been in the building trade all my life and struggled to find a reason why the new shop does not fit in with other properties in the area. I therefore fully endorse the new venture and also ask you to do so. Thank you.
I would just like to say a few words as a member of staff for the shop. I worked here part-time for over 10 years and the new shop will be offering me a full-time position. I love my job and this position would mean the world to me. The new building is the same as other surrounding buildings which all appear to be natural stone. And once the shop as well as will blend in perfect so with the houses and buildings around. Every time I work I can guarantee I get asked about the new shop several times and everybody I've spoke to about it are all in favour and excited. They also pass comments around good it looks and it being a nice building, etc. As regards to the parking, I honestly can't see it being any different to now, if not better, as we plan to have 2 people on for our busier periods. I created a Facebook page for the shop back in September when the building first started. We have over 250 local followers on the page that take interest in the things we post, and one of which got shared that many times, it reached over 20,000 people. The reviews are all positive, with comments such as very friendly and pleasant staff, always service with a smile, and that nothing is too much trouble. Securing this one-stop franchise will be of great benefit to our ever-expanding community.
Thank you. Rachel Walker.
I'd like to say a few words. I was so pleased to hear about the new shop being disabled and pushchair access, and I have an 85-year-old grandma that has to use a wheelchair to get around. The new building itself fits in within the community as it looks modern following the recent new builds in the area. The effect on the public amenity will be positive as the new store will stock a much wider range of products and therefore appeal to a wider audience. Myself and 15 members of my family live within a short walking distance to the shop, as many other families do. I speak on behalf of all members of my family and completely support the new build.
Hiya. I'm actually a manager for a large retail. I live locally in the area, and I don't want to go over what everybody else has said about the community because the community is everything. All I want to sort of say is that some of the older generation that live up there around Hightown, they go to that shop all the time. It's their only sort of local shop that they can get to. That might be the only people that they talk to all day. You know, they're just sat in houses all day, they go there once a day, probably just to get out, get a paper and actually have a conversation with somebody every day. And I just think we've got to treasure all these little local shops now because although I work for a large supermarket, they are taking over all these local little businesses and I just think we should support this. It is a very good local shop and you know it needs supporting.
Thank you. Richard Walker, please.
drawings up on the board, it clearly shows on the approved drawings that entry to the loft space is by means of a kite staircase. This will provide access to the centre of the loft based on the approved pitch roof. It was our intention to utilise this space for welfare, office space, cash office, etc. It late, while construction was well underway, I was informed through regulations and fire department that they would not permit a kite-minded staircase, and access to the loft space had to be full disabled access, or ambulance disabled access, I beg your pardon. This was confirmed in writing on the 10th of October. I was also instructed that this space could only be used for storage. This meant that everything planned for upstairs had to be moved downstairs, including full disabled toilet facilities. The requirements to make the loft disabled access now created a dilemma. The new staircase would have to consist of 17 treads, each 250 mm running, and 3 landings, each of 1 square metre, making a total length of 7.25 metres. It would also require a head height of a minimum 2 metres. This would make access to the loft impossible. I instantly put the order for the proposed roof trusses on hold and invited a roof truss expert to attend it and advise me on how to make this work. After much deliberation, he confirmed that the only way to achieve access to the loft with full DDA compliance was to raise the pitch of the roof to 45 degrees. At significant extra cost to me, we agreed and gave instructions based on the fact that this was as a consequence of building regulations and would therefore be supported as an amendment along with this extra space downstairs to accommodate the staircase and a secure area for our cash machine, having already suffered 2 attempts to steal our present cash machine. To make me lower the pitch now would result in having to find alternative storage space, i.e. have a container positioned to the rear of the building, and this would be totally impractical, unsafe and not disabled friendly. My question to planning is that the plans were approved in May. It clearly shows the kite staircase on there. Why did it take until the construction was more than 50% completed before I was made aware that this was unacceptable?
Draw to a close, please.
Sorry?
Draw to a close, please.
All right, okay. Right. All through this process, I've been very considerate to the neighbourhood, using only natural stone and natural product to match our existing building. The render is in keeping and was carefully considered to match neighbouring properties. On our new build was only granted on the condition that we converted our existing store into residential. This was something we completely endorsed. However,
Simon Russell, please.
Good afternoon. I'm the architect for the original approved drawing. I'm also the architect for the amendment showing the pitch from 32 degrees to 45. We also were asked to provide evidence of parking for the additional 5 part-time staff, which we did. On that point, I think when you think 5 staff part-time, theoretically aren't going to really need 5 parking areas. So in actual fact, on the layout plan, if it prefers highways, we could remove 2, and basically it wouldn't encroach on any existing parking terminals or anything. I'll reiterate basically that the property is in keeping in the sense that it is rendered, it's stone roof tiles. Richard's gone to great lengths to make sure that it's in keeping. The only thing basically is that we've altered the pitch of the roof, basically from 3.2 to 4.45, which in theory is 1.3 metres higher. There is one point to consider. I don't know if you noticed on your site meeting this morning that when you go into the existing shop, if any of you did, the level of the road and the existing footpath fall considerably. In that when you go into the new shop, the old shop at the moment, you have to go down 4 steps, and that's in the middle. So at one end, it's DPC is correct. On the other end, it's 1100 millimetres underground. This is something that building control would not permit on the new dwelling, and that's why it appears that one side of the shop is considerably higher than the approved, because on excavation of the existing dry stone wall and 20-foot shrubs, when we got down to existing ground floor, we found that the DPC on that end of the shop was 1.32 metres higher than existing ground level. So whilst some of you feel it may look basically encumbrance on the road, it doesn't. It basically works, and it gives everything a level disabled threshold, so that with a flat platform inside, which is a greatly needed thing in the new shop. The footpath, I have to mention about this footpath. My clients originally had 20-foot conifers at the side of that footpath. Okay, so, and he's replaced that with a brand new fence. Now I've got to add that on Springfield Drive, at the back of all those houses, that footpath couldn't be used at all. Not less than 12 months ago, it was full of mattresses and garden rubbish, so it was basically a footpath to nowhere. However, my client kept it clear and has put up a brand new fence. Visibility display, I'll close on that, has not been affected whatsoever, because the footpath on Halifax Road is actually 2.2 metres wide, so it doesn't affect the visibility whatsoever. But like I've stressed, the parking to the rear probably won't be needed. I was asked to show a site plan with 5 parking areas on it for 5 part-time staff. Well, when you think there's not going to be 5 part-time staff there at the same time. Thank you. Thank you.
Right, there's no more speakers. But I know I'm staying on my topic. I'm not going to go into the problems with it. Can I just say that I don't think there's any member of this committee that doesn't realise that that shop is required. And none of us think of anything else, but the planning that's before us, the planning problems that are before us, it's not the shop. I think that's important that you take that away from it. Whatever the decision is today, it's not the shop is required. That's why the original application was approved. We're going to talk today, we're going to make a decision today on things where it doesn't actually comply with the application that's been approved. With that being said, I'll leave it to members. Anybody wanted to speak? John? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I think today we've got a particularly difficult one because as it stands at the moment, we've got quite a lot of reasons to refuse this application to go with officer's recommendation, and it's very difficult to get around those reasons as they stand at the moment, because we have the height of the ridge line, which in the report is at 2.7 metres above what was agreed with initially. We have the parking issues and the access and egress to the parking space, and we also have the public highways issues, notwithstanding the last speaker's assertion that it wasn't usable in the first place. It's actually still a public highway and it should be maintained in its current way. That said, I've not said this for a while, but I'll say it now. Kirklees isn't in the business of putting businesses out of business. So with that in mind, I think what I would propose, or what I would do, is that we defer this decision to have a look at these issues of the height to see if there are any solutions, any compromises that can be made in that sense. The same with parking and other parking that may be addressing the retaining wall as we built and readjusting some of that.
got to commend the people that have come into it, because it is, I'm quite torn, and it is about balancing the community needs, and things have changed. But it was never about closing anything down. We want to support businesses to thrive in that community. So I'm going to second what Councillor Lawson says, because it is about finding solutions and delegating it to officers to come back and work on something, because it's about the access to the footpath. And I have got concerns about the highway area around that, and also about how close proximity is built to some things. Yeah, so I'm happy to second Councillor Lawson.
Councillor Hall.
I'll just back up what John said. Thing is, when we have applications, where we have officers, where we have committees, is to pass applications, and we do that for simple reason. We don't want people to be building this, that and other if we didn't have these processes. And I understand about I went past it on Monday night from them. However, when I go to Hightown now, when I put a brig out, as soon as I get to Lonsdale pub, right there bottom of the road, and the car starts rolling, thinking, bloody hell, I've got to go up all that hill. It is vital to that area, is this shop. And I certainly do not want it to close down, and I will support the recommendation to look into it to see if there's anything that can be clawed back from some of these mistakes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I want to support a lot of what's been said. It's quite clear that this shop and the post office, we talk quite really about post offices, but we don't want post offices not to exist, because that's important for the community. But certain things have been done on this site which we, as planning authority, probably wouldn't have sanctioned. So we need to sort those out. I mean, personally, if it is necessary to have a higher roof line because of requirements that have apparently been insisted upon, then I'm quite possibly happy to go along with that. Because I don't understand why you need disabled access to that space. We need that. That's one of the things we need to confirm. And also, we've been told that the parking area doesn't work for all sorts of reasons, quite apart from the encroachment on the public right of way, which I is quite a serious matter, frankly. So for all those reasons, I would support the deferral, so that we can have answers to all the questions that members have raised, and indeed some of the speakers have raised as well, so that it could then come back to a further meeting of the committee, preferably the next one, but it might take a bit longer than that.
Okay.
I echo what a lot of the members have said here today, and I'm one of the biggest cheerleaders for small businesses, and it's great to see so many people out in support of that. I think it is prudent to point out that planning actually did support the new build of the shop and disabled access into the shop. That's never been an issue. The reason I'm torn is because after being on the planning committee now for 3 years, I've never seen a plan go quite so scarily wrong. Also nobody's mentioned the fact that it was supposed to be a hip roof and it's now a gable roof. My concern is because of the drastic changes in the plans, we are seen to be allowing this sort of thing to happen. Could we open a big can of worms for future developments and set a precedent? That's my concern. If it was just a little bit here or a little bit here, the changes are quite significant, to be honest with you. And it really does concern me that if we approve this, is something going to come back to us at a later date and say, well, you let that go through, that came to committee, you let that go through, you know, you not letting this go through. And I do understand the small business aspect, and I am, you know, as I said, I am a big cheerleader for that. But I'm also on the planning committee, so that's why I'm particularly torn with this one. If it was just a building and it was just accommodation, there is absolutely no way on earth that we would allow this to have happened. And I'm also surprised that the architect hasn't actually brought the new plan, the changes, back to planning before now. I mean, surely that's something that should have occurred if there's a massive change in the plan. I assume that the architect should bring that back and it shouldn't have been allowed to carry on. I mean, I don't know what architects get paid for, but I'm assuming it's to look at things like this. So,
thank you, Chair. I'd like to echo what Councillor Mees just said. I think we need to be a bit careful and try and take the emotion out of this. This is a planning decision. Has there been an infringement of what's in effect a law, a planning law, has been an infringement? And then as Councillor Mees said, this isn't just somebody's gone an extra yard or put a window in the wrong place. We've got the roof wrong, we've got the car parking wrong, we've got the size of it wrong. They've cut a public footpath in half, because we were there this morning, and it's in half is that public footpath. So this is not just a little bit of a mistake, this is a whole series of mistakes that's been made. And we only said, if we have a planning system, what do we have it for? Do we have it? Planning is appropriate, complies, but if that's what it's for, this building doesn't comply because it wrote the planning law, the planning application was approved. So therefore, I'm torn about this, because I get the public need, I get that, but I'm trying to take the emotion out of it, because it's not an emotion to did this infringe the application that was submitted to the approved? Now for me it does. And therefore I'm looking at purely on planning grounds, and I think that's a real consideration that we have to take into account. Did it infringe the granted permission? And Grace is right. Do we set a dangerous precedent? Do we send a message out that you can't mess with the rules? You've got something, please stick to that. But you know, we bend over backwards on this committee to work with people all the time. We do that. We all support small business. We all want business time, but we do bend over backwards sometimes. But sometimes people come back and, you know, there's a bit of, are they trying to have us, you know, make us look foolish? Well, that's how it feels sometimes. But I'm keeping an open mind with the problem.
Can I come back in? Thank you. On that last point about enforcement and has it come from the planning regulations? It has. It has. And if it were to stay in this form, we'd have an option. We'd have to refuse it. That's not my personal view. There is though the principle of bringing back into regulation, and for me that's what's important here, is to bring it back into regulation and make it an acceptable way of the business carrying on for all the reasons that we just heard. So with that, I wouldn't actually change.
Can I just sort of wind this up? It is important. Planning in all its intents and purposes is what is called development control, and this is what we're trying to do today, is to control this development. And what's actually happened previously is obviously somebody thought, well, we're not bothered about what the planners has told us. We're going to carry on and build this anyway. And I think that sometimes rubs us up the wrong way. And I have to say this, that in many occasions, in particular at the last planning committee, we sat with some people that came to talk to us about an application. And the community actually wanted that application. They wanted that application. And I can understand you want this application. But we have got to control that development. And that is what this is all about. And it's not the other occasion, because I don't think there's anybody here said anything about the size of it. And it's extended by a metre and a bit. Nobody's bothered about the actual size, the footprint of it. We're all bothered about the roof. We're bothered about the footpath. We're bothered about the back of parking and whatever. And somebody raised this earlier about the waste control. Why is there's no waste control here? Where's the bins going to go? A bigger shop like this is going to actually create loads and loads of rubbish and cardboard and things like that. There's nothing in there about that control. So we've got to understand that. And I'll tell you something, if that was being blown all over the road and being thrown all over the road, you'll be the first ones to come back to the council and say you've got to control that. Now that's what we're wanting to do here, that's what we're trying to do, is to control this development so it's good for you as a community and it fits our planning requirements. And somebody said this earlier, it's about an architect. Architects are paid to do a job, to actually build a property in line with the planning requirements. And this, they just forgot about it. They forgot about it. They said, no, just carry on, they'll do this. I want to ask one question here. At what time, at what stage did we go look at this? Was the roof on?
Through you, Ted, the roof was going on at the point we were able to get out on site. There were complaints in October. There was also a new application for signage in the rebuilding, which as soon as we opened them, we looked and got.
Did you tell them at that time that that picture of that roof is incorrect? And they continued doing it?
Yes, we did.
They continued. Well then, who's responsible now? Absolutely, there's only one person responsible on this. Mark, I'm going to let you come in because I really want to wind this up. Okay.
When you said that we told them, who did we tell and how did we tell them? Was it written? Have we got a record of that?
The enforcement officer spoke to the applicant and spoke to the agent and emailed and wrote to them.
Right, so everything's there. Right. No, we're not going to bring it back. Can I just say, we are going to move in a second there. But the other thing that we need to say here is that unless there is some changes in this application, not with the actual size or anything like that, the main things that we've looked at, we will be, I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for everybody here, we'll be looking to enforce it, the requirements of the previous application. That means we'll ensure that it comes down. Because we want to take something away from it, and that is that we're not going to accept that people willy-nilly carries on. They've been told at a time when they could have altered it. It's not fair for us to then come at a later date, for you to come at a later date and say, look, no, we're going to an application. So we've got a move in a second to defer it. We know the questions that we're asking of officers. Are we all okay with that? Is everybody in favour of that?
Chair, can we just put a timeline on if we're going to defer it? Because we don't want it to go on.
I don't think we'll get it back in the next meeting.
No, but
seriously.
consider it going
within the next 2 meetings.
Yes, that's
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Can I just make one small point, Chair? That's about parking standards in relation to the size of the shop.
Yeah.
I just want it confirmed that it's those that legally have to have a certain number of parking spaces.
Well, we'll come back with them.
Yeah.
We can come back with that.
Put that on the list. Is what I'm saying. Thank you.
Say what we'll do. So we will ask the applicant to reconsider the roof, height, pitch, both, and then footpath widening back to what should be, and then how the car park and the refuge management, the bins, the collection work. Those areas we will ask, we will show you what they have said and respond within 2 time cycles of committee.
Chair, can I just say one sentence, please? The proprietors of the property did not receive a letter or an email with regards to the pitch.
Well, you can't prove that. We've been told we can prove it.
Right.
Okay. You can't prove that. Right. We took the decision.
I just want to say, is there any chance that we could sort the footpath out before?
It's in?
Yeah, I know it's in there, but could it be done sooner rather than later?
It's done tomorrow.
Okay.
That can change tomorrow. But that's next to our labour.
Okay.
Just tell us what we need to do.
Right, that application has been deferred for 2 meetings. Are we all in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you. Quick break, members.
Yeah, no.
The one that we've all been lobbying up.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to 13.5 Moonbank Lane, Woollen, one residential unit, with small extension to the rear. Site has driveway access to both sides of the building, providing street parking. Site is bound by residential properties to the north and south, open land to the east and west. The application is brought to committee at the request of Councillor David Hall. Initially sought for the subdivision of the existing building to a pair of seven detached dwellings. The works proposed may be internal, although the porch of number 35 would be removed to facilitate off-street parking provision to the front side frontage, and that's this location here. Site is now allocated on UDP and publication of local plan, and therefore the principal providing an additional residential unit in a sustainable location would assist with the provision of housing within the district. The proposal would bring the development back into its original use, although off-street parking provision would be introduced to the site frontage, therefore altering the character of the street scene. Windman Lane has a mixture of styles and ages of residential properties, many of which have driveways and areas of hard standing to the front. Whilst the existing garden contributes positively to the character of the street scene and locality, officers consider that on balance, closed hard standing areas would not detract from the character of the area. This provision would provide adequate off-street parking to serve each dwelling. This is shown in this area here. With respect to residential amenity, the subdivision of the dwelling back to two properties would utilise existing openings. Officers consider that adequate means of space would be provided to serve each dwelling. Although it should be noted that an outline application for one dwelling was recently approved adjacent to number 35, and that's indicated here on the site plan. Should this dwelling be constructed following approval of the Subsequent Reserved Matters application, the amenity space to serve number 35 would be reduced, as that's currently the side garden there. Notwithstanding this, officers do not consider this to be significant enough to warrant refusal of the current application. So to summarise, officers consider that the proposals will have no significant adverse impact upon vision or residential amenity or highway safety, and approval is recommended as set out within the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Through your chair. There has been some concerns regarding the parking to the frontage. Now, whilst it's acknowledged that the requirement to reverse in and out of these spaces, it's not dissimilar to other existing properties along the bank lane.
Mr. Allen,
Chair, good afternoon. The result of this application and the connected officer-approved application for a separate new build property is effectively a row of 4 parking spaces in front of number 35 and the proposed new property, straight onto the pavement. There is literally nothing quite like it in the immediate or indeed wider area. Furthermore, the adjacent properties on either side have spacious driveways and garages. You really cannot imagine anything so obviously and glaringly completely different and not in keeping with the immediate area. Windbank Lane is a through road, it's a bus route, not a cul-de-sac or an enclosed development. The adjacent properties on either side have spacious gardens. Furthermore, properties on the nearby Windbank estate have spacious gardens and plenty of spacing between properties. Chapter 11 of the National Planning Policy Framework, paragraph 122, implies that any development should contribute to the area's prevailing character and setting, including residential gardens. This does not comply, and neither does the other application. Number 35 will have negligible rear garden space. The proposed new property will have a much smaller rear garden than surrounding properties. Furthermore, neither property will have any front garden. Even the oldest properties locally, numbers 1 to 29 Moneyback Lane, have at least some front garden. On other technical matters relating to both applications, we're also concerned about the following points. The uncorrected errors on both applications relating to existing and proposed parking and existing and proposed housing, the lack of a highways report for either of these applications, despite the original application having a highways report that asked for further information. The acknowledgement letter only refers to the alterations to convert one dwelling into 2 and not to the parking changes, etc. The official planning notice dated 18th of September was not displayed for the full 21 days. The plans presume that approval will be given to the other application. It was, but more than 2 months later. We would have absolutely no reason to object to changing the existing property into 2 as it was previously. However, that is not the case, as number 35 loses a front and side garden and a drive and a garage. The whole character of the property would change. 3 of the south side windows would look out onto the wall of the proposed new build, high density and enclosed. We believe that the 2 applications should have properly been considered and decided on at the same time together. In summary, we strongly object to the density of the alterations, the visual aspect and the potential results of the parking arrangements, i.e. parking on the street and access and traffic disruption on this bus route. We respectfully ask you to reject the application.
Just out of curiosity, why didn't we visit the site on this one? Sorry? Just out of curiosity, I'm wondering why we didn't visit the site.
Yeah, because of the few objectives there.
Yeah, I was happy to go with the office's recommendation. Delegate it back to the office.
It's all right. Thank you, Chair. It does seem to me that there is a slight problem with this. We've got, as the last speaker has said, we've now got 4 parking spaces which give straight onto the road, which I can't remember, is it a B road, I think, and it's relatively busy. So I'm slightly surprised that that's been approved. Yes, I can see we've got a precedent with the one that's already been given permission. And on the face of it, if you're going to have another application, you've got a precedent to put their parking spaces in the front, unless there is any good reason for not doing that. I mean, I'm a little bit concerned about having 4 spaces where you've got to reverse onto the road. I just don't think it's a good idea.
Reverse in.
Well, yes, I know you can do that, but there will be occasions when people just don't do that, and you've got to reverse out. The advantage of having I suppose if you had a drive, it would be the same. But put another way, the fact that we've already granted permission for a house with similar arrangement, I don't see how we can refuse this one on those sorts of grounds.
That's why we didn't go with it. Fence, which is anybody else, John, did you indicate?
Quickly, Chairman. I'm just looking at one of the earlier applications we've done. I know the dangers of comparing applications, but the one that was for a terrace, a similar size, similar scale, if we took this all as one application, would we approve? I'm thinking we probably would. So that's kind of what I might go with it.
As we say that.
I can see no reason to object to it, and especially not conditions like the rule of PD rights. I can see no reason to object to it, and I'll support. Has it been moved? Yeah. I'll second it.
I don't really want to wind it on. It speaks for itself. But, not moving the sector to accept officers' recommendations.
Chair, I forgot to say, I know it's down as the conditions, but the development rights to be removed, that's essential.
Okay. All those in favour? Anybody against? Application approved. Thank you. Last item, next to the rear extension with Scarlett and radar windows at 16 Thomas Street, NY.
The application for extension to 16 Thomas Street has been brought to committee at the request of Council Shade for the reasons outlined in the officer report, and members visited the site this morning. The host property is a traditional stone-fronted mid-terrace on a street at similar properties. The application seeks consent for a dormer within the rear roof plane and a rear extension. The site is located within the UDP and has been assessed within the officer report in terms of visual amenity, residential amenity and highway safety. The dormer has been assessed as being acceptable in terms of scale and with the appropriate use of materials. There are also other such examples in the vicinity, and this would therefore not be out of place in the wider area. Position of the dormer up within the roof of the dwelling also minimises the potential for harm to be caused from the amenities of the occupiers and neighbouring dwellings. The rear extension has also been considered in terms of its scale and materials, as the property does have a long ground, this would not represent overdevelopment, and although the materials proposed really constitute a storm, it's considered this would form an acceptable relationship with the house. However, the relationship which would be formed between the host property and the adjoining 22 Thomas Street is concerning given the projection is 4.4 metres and the exaggerated height of the extension given the land level difference. The neighbouring property is a back-to-back dwelling, and as such the extension will be built along the principal elevation, so the only window in front of that house is that window. Cause overshadowing in the middle of the morning and form no bearing and oppressive impact, which is unacceptable in terms of policy. The adjoining property on the opposite side will not be as affected. They've got their door on this side, so it's not ideal, but it's not as harmful to the property at the inside. The applicant has confirmed that part of the extension is to form ground floor accommodations for a resident to use, and they have supplied a letter from their DP to try and justify the request. This has been reviewed and is not considered to represent sufficient justification given the nature of the ailment. As such, there are no mitigating circumstances for the application which would outweigh the substantial harm to the amenities of the occupiers of the adjoining 22 Thomas Street. Therefore, for the reasons outlined in the officer's report, the proposal is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Move to the same, please.
put application in for extension to the kitchen facility for white, as they say, the application, and the doctor has given a letter supporting the application because the wife had depression, she had a brain tumor, and it was removed. At the moment she has a problem again. She's been to see CT scan again, and we're waiting for a consultant to see what problem is. When she's ill, she's upstairs, she can't come downstairs because obviously she has to use the facilities. So if it's downstairs, and she won't go upstairs because obviously she has difficulty. And that's the reason I asked her for, for an extra meter, instead of 3 meters, 4 meters, extension downstairs for toilet and the shower for the wife. And what in future, as her problem is, if you have the brain tumor, I thought I can use what I have already, the dining room as one, so I can facilitate that into like a bedroom for her, for future. That's what I was thinking. If I had like 4 meters, give me a lot of space for kitchen and for a facility for that. And one of the other thing was, when the application went in for planning, first objection was on the dormer. When my neighbour on number 20, he has been given full dormer, they said we're going to give half. And when that was being given to the planning, told that they got the full one, so it was granted the full, which we were told by my architect. And then they said we need a letter from the doctor, for supporting the application for 1 meter extra for instead of 3. So the doctor has given the letter as well for the application. And then they say roof is high. I don't understand. Obviously, I'm not builder, so I don't understand why these all things have been pulling strings. Instead of like saying all application work in front of them, and they didn't decide, say, this is the problem, but everything just came in steps. So, other thing is, at the moment, I'm paying for everything. Right now, one of the members of family members to pay for this. But as my wife's condition is in future, we have to resort to the public funds. At the moment, I'm not. So I'm paying for all this for my wife, and I'm willing to pay for this for her. But I'm not using public funds as well, so I don't know for what sake of 1 meter why this objection is being made. Thank you for the thank you.
I think it did warrant a site visit this morning to actually get it into context. I thought 4 metres was going to be substantially overbearing, even reducing it to 3. I think it did have a problem. I'm just going to leave it there for now. I'm not happy with the application. However, I want to hear what others have to say, so I might contribute a bit later. Chair?
I was basically going to echo what Councillor Scott said. I mean, if I was an officer, I probably would have approved 3 metres like a month before. So the fact that there is a 3 metre application on the table, then I think the applicant should be quite happy with that.
Thank you, Chair. I echo what's been said. The problem here is number 22, which, as it says in the report, is a back-to-back property for which the window that you can see in that picture is the only outlook for that house. If it had been a through property, then I don't. Well, I'm not sure about 3 metres, but so we might take a different view. But I think that there will be such an overbearing impact on that back-to-back property that in its current form, I don't think we can approve it. If it was a single-storey extension, and it was already a relatively high fence there, then we might take a different view. But that's not what's on the table. So I think under the present circumstances we have to review it.
Thank you. Just echoing what's been said, it's back to that property. Talking approving 3 metres, I don't think the whole road stands for any extension at the back. So
appropriate, it's too big, it will impact on the neighbours.
Can I just offer something? It isn't Southtown. I'm not saying it is. But one of the issues we've got now about this rail extensions is that we do get 4 metre extensions. But in a terrace like this, what could happen here is that, we've given the approval practically for a 3 metre extension. Now, the only issue with this one is that this is the back-to-back, and I think you raised this, and if we said to the applicant, we'll go away and redesign this, and take away, you can have 4 metres at the back, you take away the corner, which is what we have done in some of the applications in Southtown. You can have your 4 metres, but take the corner off. So it's not as effective to the windows, to the fenestration of the rooms at the side of it. You still get 3 metres, but further back it becomes 4 metres. Because the one next door, it's not affecting the one next door. It's only affecting the back-to-back one. So you can take the corner off. If we're going to say that to him and be consistent as a planning committee, which is what we're talking about previously, then we just defer it and ask him to just redesign it if that's a possibility. If he doesn't want to do that, then it comes back again and we say, I think we're all on the opinion that 4 metres is far too high. And the effect that it will have on next door is far too austere. And we hear, I think we've all said it today, we're trying to work with people, to ensure that they can have the development. I have to say, Mr. Sen, something that was said, and I don't need to respond to this, but something that was said on the bus today was that our adaptations people have not been informed, is that correct, about any issues within your farm? Now that leaves us, and you're quite laudable when you said that you wanted to pay for this out of your own money rather than public, and that's fine, no issues with that. But one would confirm the other, that there is a requirement. So that being said, I don't know whether we have a movement in a second or two. Sorry, Steve first.
As it is going forward, I think is a bit much. With a straightforward extension, but as you've just said, there are ways and means around it. And there's also the issue of there may be some kind of help that the council could give for an extension like this. So myself, I'll go for a deferral to see if there's a little bit of work that can be done. And one thing is, I tried reading these plans and I ended up thinking that somebody had sat on my glasses. Yes. And I ended up with a headache, so I gave it up as a bad job. So yeah, I'd go for a deferral and see if there's a way around the commission.
Can I just ask the officer, did anybody put forward anything else on there? So you're holding the head?
Based on what you said about the corner, I'm happy to support the deferral. Second.
Right, can we move that deferral in for them particular reasons, so as we negotiate with them? Can I just say, Mr. Sen, it comes back next time, if you come back next time, and if you don't do something with this, then I'm fairly sure it will be refused, but I'm not speaking for everybody, but I think the general feeling is it would be refused if it came back as it is now. Okay? So, all those in favour of the deferral? Anybody against? Application is deferred to the next meeting. That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you.